You're listening to The Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. This is a report of news that is honest and fair. We analyze this news for fact and bias. In short, we de-propagandize the mainstream media's news coverage. We do make commentary. No, that's not news. Commentary is opinion. And opinion is debatable. And therefore, we do just that. We debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. I'm John David Wells. Time to start our broadcast with the front page. This is a news digest of what happened since yesterday's broadcast and while we were asleep. The Israeli-Hamas war still leads the news. Evacuation process for refugees from Gaza is underway. CNN reports injured Palestinians have begun to arrive in Egypt through the Rafah border crossing one by one. This is according to the Egyptian Health Ministry. These people are the first to be allowed out of Gaza since the recent Israeli-Hamas war began in early October. Up to 500 foreigners could also cross from Gaza into Egypt under a Qatar-mediated deal, multiple sources are telling CNN. Americans are not expected to be among the first groups of foreigners potentially allowed to leave Gaza, this according to an official, again reporting to CNN. The Israeli Defense Force is defending their strike on the Jabalia refugee camp. A spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces yesterday defended the strike a day earlier on the Gaza Jabalia refugee camp, saying the Hamas commander it was targeting made the strike a clear military necessity and a legitimate target. Quote, "We know he's an arch-terrorist," said IDF Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, speaking with CNN's Phil Mattingly, referring to Ibrahim Biari, who the IDF said was killed in the strike and described as one of Hamas leaders responsible for the October 7th attack on Israel. Quote, "And of course, given the chance, he would do it again and again and again," said the IDF official, referring to terror attacks. A spokesperson for Hamas has denied that Biari was there, called the Israeli strike a heinous crime against safe civilians, children, and women. Israel has been condemned by foreign powers, has lost diplomatic relations with some of them. USA Today reports that Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates each issued statements condemning Israel's airstrikes on the Jabalia refugee camp. The three Arab states noted the dangerous and escalating conditions in Gaza. The UAE, which first diplomatically recognized Israel in 2020, warned that, quote, "indiscriminate attacks will result in the irreparable ramifications in the region to begin." And three South American countries have severed ties with Israel in response to the country's ground offensive in Gaza. Chile, Colombia recalled their ambassadors yesterday, citing humanitarian concerns for Gaza civilians. Yemen's Houthi rebels have declared war on Israel, this being reported by Reuters. Yemen's Houthis have waded into the Israel-Hamas war, raging more than 1,000 miles from their seat of power in Sana'a, this declaring war on Tuesday that they had fired drones and missiles at Israel in attacks that highlighted the regional risks of the conflict. Part of an axis of resistance backed by Iran, the Houthis have rallied behind the Palestinians since Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, opening a new front for a movement that has waged war for 8 years with a Saudi-led coalition in the Gulf. Houthi military spokesperson Yahya Saree said in a televised statement the group had launched a large number of ballistic missiles and drones toward Israel, that there would be much more attacks to come to, quote, help the Palestinians to victory, unquote. His statements confirmed the widening scope of the conflict that has unnerved states, including the world's biggest oil exporter, Saudi Arabia, hardening fears of spillover as Israel seeks to destroy Hamas in its Gaza Strip stronghold. Elsewhere in international news, Jewish homes in Paris have been painted with stars of David. This from Metro News. Homes across Paris have been marked with the Star of David in a chilling reminder of the Holocaust. France has already documented 819 latent anti-Semitic attacks since the war began between Hamas and Israel on October 7th. This according to the Minister of Interior, Gérald Darmanin. In Jewish homes in the outskirts of Paris, multiple blue stars of David have been painted on homes and stone fences. Swastikas have also been sprayed next to Jewish institutions. Students have been publicly harassed outside of Jewish schools. Another Parisian said, quote, this is not a tag. This is an insult to history, an insult to democracy, an insult to the Republic. Yesterday, the mayor of Ville Saint-Ouen-de-Seine condemned the same odious attacks. Paris must wake up quickly, he said. A retiring UN human rights official has called for the end of Israel. This from Fox News. A high-ranking UN official has retired after calling for a one-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In his letter, the official wrote on what he called an essential point regarding the war between Israel and Hamas. In what was described as his, quote, last official communication, unquote, as the director of the New York office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Craig Mokaber, sent an October 28th letter to Volker Turk of Austria, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, detailing what he believes a UN norm-based position on the war would look like. In what critics are calling comments devoid of historic fact, Mokaber called for a one-state solution, which would mean the end of Israel. Quote, we must support the establishment of a single, democratic, secular state in all of historic Palestine with equal rights for Christians, Muslims, and Jews, and therefore the dismantling of the deeply racist settler-colonist project and an end to apartheid across the land, said Mokaber. Professor Ann Bayevsky, the director of the Turo Institute on Human Rights and the Holocaust, told Fox News Mokaber wrote this letter as one of the UN's highest-ranking human rights officials on UN letterhead with a UN email address. Quote, as such, his overt call for the destruction of the Jewish state lays bare what is really going on at the UN in the war now being waged by and at the UN against Israel. National news. FBI Director Christopher Wray is warning of jihadi violence in the United States, this being reported by NPR. FBI Director Christopher Wray said yesterday the war between Israel and Hamas has led to a spike in threats against the United States, warning that we are in a dangerous period as various terrorist groups look to leverage the conflict for their own causes. The threat of international terrorism in the U.S. has largely subsided in recent years, particularly since the defeat of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. But senior American officials say Hamas's deadly attack October 7th on Israel has created a new dynamic with dangerous implications at home and abroad. Quote, the reality is that terrorism has been elevated throughout 2023, but the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole nother level. The Hamas attack, which killed 1,400 people in Israel, will serve as an inspiration on the likes of which we have not seen since ISIS launched its so-called caliphate years ago, Director Wray said. He also said that the FBI has no evidence of an imminent threat from a foreign terrorist group, but he did note that since Hamas's attack on Israel, Al-Qaeda has issued the most specific threats or calls for violence against the U.S. in years, while Islamic State has urged followers to target Jewish communities in the United States and Europe. Also in America, Cornell student has been arrested for bigoted Jewish threats. This from USA Today. A 21-year-old Cornell University student was arrested yesterday for posting threats online against Jewish students at the university over the weekend, according to the Department of Justice. Patrick Dye, a junior at Cornell University who is originally from Pittsford, New York, was arrested on a federal criminal complaint charging him with posting threats to kill or injure another using interstate communications, according to the Justice Department. If convicted, Dye faces up to 5 years in prison, a fine up to $250,000, and a term of supervised release of up to 3 years. Dye is expected to make his first appearance in federal court in Syracuse, New York today, according to the Justice Department. For its part, other Jewish students are decrying college campus bigotry at campuses across the U.S. Anti-Israeli protesters have organized massive demonstrations since the Hamas attack on Israel October 7th. The surge in incidents have been paired with anti-Semitic rhetoric and violence against Jews, leaving many students feeling unsafe and fearful of attending class. Campuses including UC Berkeley of California have become increasingly hostile environments and home to some of the most aggressive anti-Israeli demonstrations. Most recently, student groups supporting Palestinians have held a national walkout that's happening today in support of Gaza and to protest U.S. funding of Israel, according to posts by pro-Palestinian student groups on social media. Students like Allison Lax have experienced similar problems at NYU. Quote, "There have been multiple anti-Israeli rallies at NYU where I've heard students chanting death to Jews, chanting death to anybody that supports a Zionist state. I mean, these are horrific things to say at a so-called peaceful protest. I've heard students chant, globalize the Intifada, just horrific things in classrooms. Professors are spewing absolute misinformation." Lax, who has been a vocal advocate for Jewish students calling out the protest, shared she has even been personally subjected to threats at NYU. "People know who I am. I get death threats daily on Instagram. It's very scary. In class, I sit next to my peers who cheer Hamas and support the murder of over 1,400 Israelis. I don't think I'm ever going to feel safe on campus again." In Washington, Fox News reports Republican leaders released the text of emergency aid legislation, which includes $14 billion for Israel in its war against the terror group Hamas. That money would be offset by siphoning funds from President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, specifically dollars allocated toward the IRS. House Speaker Mike Johnson, the Republican from Louisiana, is hitting back at the Democrat-controlled Senate for criticizing the House GOP standalone bill to aid Israel. Quote, "It is in our national interest to support our great ally and friend Israel in their time of need, but we also have to keep our focus on our own financial stability, and so those things must happen simultaneously." The bill separates Israeli aid from Biden's original request for $106 billion in supplemental aid, which also includes money for Ukraine and the southern border. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Democrat from New York, criticized the Johnson bill on the Senate floor yesterday. Schumer called the package, quote, "woefully inadequate," and denounced its offset provisions as poison pills that increase the deficit and keep wealthy or help wealthy tax cheats from paying their fair share of taxes. For his part, Speaker Johnson then said, quote, "I would refer Senator Schumer and anyone else who's a critic of this to the Treasury report that came out this week that indicates we're going to have to borrow $1.6 trillion for the next 6 months to keep the government in operation." Johnson responded in an interview today. Medical updates today. A sad one from the Baltimore Sun. Lawrence Faucette, the 58-year-old man who in September became the second person in history to receive a genetically modified pig heart to continue his life at the University of Maryland Medical Center, died after showing signs of organ rejection. Mr. Faucette's last wish was for us to make the most of what we have learned from our experience so others may be guaranteed a chance for a new heart when a human organ is unavailable. Also, by the way, Mary Lou Retton is recovering. She says thanks for all of the support, but she is indeed on the comeback trail from pneumonia that nearly took her life. And that is today's front page. Coming up, we'll get back into some of the more more serious details regarding Israel-Hamas, including that Israeli airstrike on a refugee camp. We'll have that for you coming up in just a couple of minutes as we continue for Wednesday morning.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Good morning. This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. Telephone number 817-379-2172. For those of us who live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, last night was really good from a baseball standpoint.
And the Texas Rangers are going to the championship series.
And that, of course, was very, very cool, but that was not what we're talking about. Yesterday, the Rangers were indeed able to to win I believe it was, let's see, what is it, the fourth game of the World Series. They now have a 1-3 lead or a 3-1 lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks. That was very good news. And so we are very happy with that. Let me give you the story here. They're on the doorstep of their first World Series win here for a long time. Texas Rangers woke up Tuesday morning, decided to have their own Halloween party in the desert with kids trick-or-treating at 10 in the morning at their sprawling Phoenix resort. By nightfall, they were scaring the living daylights out of the Arizona Diamondbacks with an historic ambush at Chase Field, winning 11-7 in a game so lopsided at one juncture. The sellout crowd of 48,388 entertained themselves by throwing paper airplanes on the field. It prompted the public address announcer to remind the crowd it's illegal to throw objects onto the field. Now, there are the Rangers in a position that they have been in before, 4,387 days ago, to be exact. They are one victory away from winning their first World Series in franchise history with a commanding 3-1 lead. This is where we want to be, said Rangers second baseman Marcus Semien, who had a 3 RBI all-postseason and then drove in 5 runs in the first 3 innings. It's a one-game-at-a-time mentality. We'll get some rest tonight. We win the ball game. We get a ring, of course. But you need to think about the process of how to get that done. Yes, indeed. These are two very, very good teams. One based on grit and talent and all of the things required to get through the National League, and the other with an incredible offense that shows up nearly every time it's needed. These two are extremely well-matched teams. It is a well-balanced World Series, and we are very, very lucky to have this truly the Fall Classic. The only time the Rangers have been this close was back in October 27th of 2011, when they were twice one strike away from beating the St. Louis Cardinals in Game 6 of the World Series. It instead became forever known as the David Freese game. The Rangers blew the game in the 9th inning and again in the 10th, only to lose in the 11th on Freese's walk-off homer. Lost again the next night in Game 7. It was the ultimate punch to the gut, leaving Ranger fans with a broken heart that is yet to heal. I was too young to remember that one, said Rangers left fielder Evan Carter. I was 9. Well, everyone else in the Dallas Forever Metroplex can certainly tell you all about it. Here we are 12 years later, 12 years, 4 days to be exact, with 3 chances to end this torturous 62-year drought. It was an impressive, symbolic victory yesterday. I was very, very pleased. Very happy to watch it. And the baseball is just absolutely amazing. The defense is without par. And I've got to tell you, I've been incredibly critical of American League defense when it comes to baseball. You know, I don't never really liked American League baseball in the first place. I was always a National League guy. I like the strategy involved. I like the smaller game. But this game was unbelievably good from a standpoint of American League style ball, where you waited for the big fly at the right time. It happened twice in the game with 11 runs being scored, actually 3 times in the game, with 11 runs being scored by the Texas Rangers. They'll see what they can do about wrapping it all up tonight, and we will all be sitting there waiting. By the way, while we're talking about last night, it was Halloween. I was very disappointed. We're going to have to do something better next year. We only had 3 trick-or-treaters last night. 3. I mean, we had scary stuff up. What happened? This, I do not know. But that being said, the treats were for Rangers fans last night. Coming up, we have the very latest when it comes to the Israel-Hamas war. That's next.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. The Israel-Hamas war continues today. It leads the news, and here is the very latest, courtesy of USA Today. A flurry of Israeli airstrikes on the largest refugee camp in Gaza caused dozens of casualties yesterday, flattened apartment buildings, and killed what the Israeli military said was a Hamas commander and numerous other militants. citing officials from Indonesian hospital on the outskirts of Gaza City. Reuters has reported that more than 50 people were killed, 150 wounded in the attack on the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp. Al Jazeera TV video showed 4 large craters and mounds of debris where residential structures had been standing, dozens of people digging through the rubble trying to find survivors. The Israeli Defense Force said it struck a Hamas stronghold and killed Ibrahim Biari, whom it described as one of the leaders of the October 7th rampage. The IDF also said Hamas had taken over civilian buildings and that tunnels underneath them had collapsed. In a tweeted video, military spokesman Jonathan Conricus said that Biari had liters of Israeli blood on his hands, and killing him was the main goal of the operation, which also killed dozens of Hamas combatants who were hiding in the vast tunnel complexes underneath the Jabalia area. Reuters reported a long line of bodies covered in white cloth laid out beside the Indonesian hospital in the nearby town of Bet Lahia. A procession of injured people of different ages getting rushed to the facility amid screams and chaos. Secretary of State Antony Blinken traveling to the Middle East for a second time in 3 weeks, initially meeting with Israeli officials before visiting other nations in the region, according to the State Department. The nearly 672,000 Palestinians sheltering in 149 UN refugee locations across the Gaza Strip are facing increasingly desperate conditions, according to the UN Reliefs and Works Agency. Also, rocket and drone attacks on U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria are now up to 27, according to the Pentagon, which said it's sending 300 more troops to the Middle East with specialization in explosives ordnance disposal and communications. Israel said 2 of its soldiers were killed in fighting in North Gaza, the first military deaths reported since the ground offensive intensified late last week. 10 UN RWA staffers have been killed in the last 3 days, bringing the total to 63 staffers killed since the war began, October 7th. By the way, Israel condemned by foreign powers and loses some diplomatic relations. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and others, Chile and Colombia, have also severed their ties, while Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates have, for their part, condemned the attack on the Jabalia refugee camp. That, by the way, brings us to a very serious and difficult question about what is going on here. Hamas started this war with Israel by overflowing the Gaza Strip perimeter, heading into Israel, and slaughtering Israelis, sometimes as they slept, in various kibbutzes around the particular borderline. They started the war. Israel responded as they should have. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They are responding as if they are terrorists. Now, Hamas has a long-standing policy of using civilians, their own people, as human shields to protect themselves. Israel has a grim choice. Either they can continue a now 56-year tradition of potshot and deadly, and in this case, monstrously horrific terror attacks on their soil, or they can go about making it abundantly plain that Hamas is a terrorist organization and will be treated as a terrorist organization, and those who support Hamas are Hamas. And they have decided to make that choice. They know who these people are. They know how many Israelis have been killed by these people. To the people of the Gaza Strip, if you are near someone who is Hamas, you're about to get hit by a rocket. This doesn't take a great deal of thinking. Now, Hamas, in its monstrosity, in its monstrous evil, has for the last several days stopped Palestinians from leaving the Gaza Strip through the Rafah Gate down at the southern end of the Gaza Strip. That is outlandish. That gate is open. There are people leaving. The exact terms of people leaving, not necessarily known at this point. But Egypt does not want Palestinians to occupy their land. They simply don't. And you can understand why. It's very, very difficult to invite people who have spent the last half century engaged in terror attacks and grievance and refuse to take yes for an answer. And so what do you do with people that simply will not cooperate and will bring violence to your land? Do you allow them in or not? Those similar calls have been made here in the United States. So far, the answer has been a resounding no. I suspect and I hope that it continues to be a resounding no. Palestinians have a choice to make. They can either be led by terrorists and therefore become terrorists, or they can completely reject the notion of Hamas. And yes, start working with the Israeli Defense Force in ridding themselves of Hamas. Until they do, they will find themselves being sundered under Israeli armament and in horrifically tragic attacks because Hamas commits war crimes and hides among the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people aren't stupid. They know they're there. They must now know that if you are in league with or in the company of Hamas terrorists, you will be treated as a Hamas terrorist. And frankly, you should be. This has become a watershed event, not just for Israel, not just for the Palestinian people, but for the entire world. Earlier today, we find ourselves in a position where a UN official is calling for the end of the state of Israel, a one-state solution, where all peoples, Jews, Muslims, Christians, can all live together in what would have been the end of Israel in that property and live supposedly in democratic harmony? Well, that doesn't work. It certainly doesn't work for Israel, and it certainly doesn't work for the world's Jews. We know what the Muslims and what the Palestinians want to do with Jews. We know. They simply want to slaughter them. Okay. And therefore, there cannot be the end of Israel. And this is a UN official saying this. So what this has done is this has exposed this unbelievable anti-Jewish, corrosive, genocidal bigotry that spans the entire globe. And exists, by the way, right here in this country. There have been people that are now sitting in jail contemplating their future because of threats they've made to Jewish people around the country. For the last couple of days, I've been contacting all my Jewish friends to make sure that they're okay and offering my assistance, if I can, to help them should any of those circumstances change. I suggest everybody else does that as well. It's time to stand with the Jews. It is time to divest ourselves of people who hate to the point of genocide. A group of people, an ancient people that have lived for thousands of years and seek to continue living. That's all they are looking for. All of these conspiracy theories about how the Jews are handling the financial empires of the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Poppycock. Absolute poppycock. What about these gigantic financial institutions of the European Union, of the United States of America? What about the International Monetary Fund? We're going to talk about all that in the infamous words of AOC. It's all about the Benjamins. Okay, well, who's actually running the Benjamins? It's the International Monetary Fund. We all know what international organizations think of Israel. Once again, I just talked about the United Nations. Do you think the International Monetary Fund is any different? The answer is no. The human existence on this planet needs to improve. It needs to improve. Do I have an issue with what happened at the airstrike on the Al Jabalia refugee camp? Yes, I have issues there. I also have issues with the hostages that are being held by Hamas. I have a different remedy for both. Israel is working extremely hard not to run afoul of those people that would accuse it of occupying the Gaza Strip. And therefore, they haven't sent ground soldiers into these refugee camps. Perhaps in the future they will. But to stand off and arc rockets into what is indeed a densely populated refugee camp is something that is an ugly picture. That being said, the people in that refugee camp are Hamas operatives. It is as simple as that. And if indeed the world chooses to try to make them into innocent men, women, and children, they're whistling Dixie before the maelstrom. That is not the case. If you stand with Hamas, you are Hamas. You will suffer a Hamas fate. You have got to grab your kids and your wives or your husbands and get out. This is the way this works. Again, I made this metaphor yesterday. It's like going to a National Football League game and setting out your picnic on the 50-yard line. And then complaining when you get run over. You're going to get run over. You have got to take care of yourselves. Hamas is not taking care of you. They are using you as a shield to protect them from the monstrous ideology of killing Jews that they possess. It's nothing more simple. It's nothing more elegant than that. You are being governed, if you call it that, by a group of bigoted, murderous, corrosive, horrifying, anti-Jewish bigots. And because you are following them, that stain is spreading across your people. If that's what you want, then stop complaining when Israel hits your refugee camp. And the rest of the world need to wake up. You need to wake up. This entire conflict is about destroying Israel's chance for real peace with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates. That's all this is. All those countries can see beyond this primitive, genocidal, unnecessary, useless hate. The rest of the world is having trouble with it. All this is an attempt by Iran to keep the status quo ante at hand, which is division, hatred, murder, terrorism, because that helps them profit in some way, shape, or form. Iran is a country that exists solely to generate fear, anxiety, and hatred among various tribes of the world. Do they find it entertaining? No. They find it profitable. As the Wells Report reported yesterday, the Israeli Ministry of the Interior put out information regarding the net worth of Hamas leaders in the billions of dollars. And why wouldn't it be? $6 billion of those dollars was given to the Palestinians by the United States of America. I mean, take a look at Gaza. Does that look like a place that's been nourished with tens of billions of dollars every single year like clockwork from everywhere in the world? Or does it look like an armed camp of squalor and misery? That's what it looks like to me. That's a small place. The billions and millions and all of the amounts of international humanitarian aid that goes into the Gaza Strip, okay, where is it? If it's there, how come people are rushing to these enclaves of humanitarian aid and stealing food. Maybe it's because they weren't given that food in the first place when it first showed up. Maybe that's why. And who would not have given it to them? Well, that would be Hamas again, wouldn't it? This obscenity must end. But it's going to get ugly while it's ending. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us. Telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. FBI Director Christopher Wray testified before the Senate yesterday and had some things that you need to hear about. Here they are. Senate yesterday and had some things. Hold on a minute here. Hold on just a couple of seconds. Stand by. Got to start over on this one. Life is fun sometimes, and other times it's kind of just annoying, I guess. Let's try this one more time as we bring you the news here on the Wells Report. Once again, this is Christopher Wray testifying before the Senate yesterday, and very pointed questions and some very concerning answers.
Discussions about the most pressing national security threats that what we face and what we're doing to tackle them are always important, but it seems especially well-timed this year with the dangerous implications the very fluid situation in the Middle East has been elevated throughout 2023. But the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole nother level. Since the horrific terrorist attacks committed by Hamas against innocent people in Israel a few weeks ago, we've been working around the clock to support our partners there and to protect Americans here at home. We assess that the actions of Hamas and its allies will serve as an inspiration, the likes of which we haven't seen since ISIS launched its so-called caliphate several years ago. In just the past few weeks, multiple foreign terrorist organizations have called for attacks against Americans and the West. Al-Qaeda issued its most specific call to attack the United States in the last 5 years. ISIS urged its followers to target Jewish communities in the United States and Europe. Hezbollah has publicly expressed its support for Hamas and threatened to attack U.S. interests in the Middle East. And we've seen an increase in attacks on U.S. military bases overseas carried out by militia groups backed by Iran. Here in the United States, our most immediate concern is that violent extremists, individuals or small groups, will draw inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks against Americans going about their daily lives. That includes not just homegrown violent extremists inspired by a foreign terrorist organization, but also domestic violent extremists targeting Jewish or Muslim communities. We've already seen that with the individual we arrested last week in Houston who'd been studying how to build bombs and posted online about his support for killing Jews. And with the tragic killing of a 6-year-old Muslim boy in Illinois in what we're investigating as a federal hate crime. But as I said a few moments ago, on top of the homegrown violent extremists and domestic violent extremist threat, we also cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or another foreign terrorist organization may exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here on our own soil.
That is Director Christopher Wray of the FBI talking before the Senate about what he's calling a dramatic increase in the level of threat for terrorist attacks here in the United States. It is impossible to listen to the director of the FBI in plain English discussing that the nation is under threat, something that he doesn't do, except yesterday, without thinking about the southern border of this country wide open, where members of the terrorist watch list that we keep in these United States have been arrested. We don't know which of those terrorists have made it through as what are called gotaways. Gotaways happen a lot, 600,000 in the last year alone. How many of them are arch terrorists here to kill Americans? No one knows. How much money do we spend on the Department of Homeland Security? How much money do we spend on the FBI? How much money do we spend on these organizations that have no idea how many terrorists are in this nation at this moment? Is it possible to locate all of them? No, it is not. Is it possible to do a better job with national security? It sure as hell is. Like, shut down the border except for the international ports of entry. Why in heaven's name hasn't that happened yet? We are begging for a terrorist attack on this country that will make 9/11 look like a tea party. We, the people of the United States, have demanded it over and over and over. In 2016, we fired the political process for not doing their jobs in shutting down that border. And the political process completely ignored us. There is war in the Middle East, a tinderbox of world threat that is yet to be dealt with any kind of reasonable interest in a solution. The Abraham Accords were a brave step forward. The attempt to build on the Abraham Accords frightened Iran to the point where they sent their goons out to start killing people and then complain when Israel responds. It's time to see through all this. Somebody needs to sit down with the Palestinians, and I have done so. You pay for your ticket, you take your chances, and that's what they've done. This is the Wells Report.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning for the Wells Report, and make sure you share us with all your friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and don't forget to check out our Substack column, which will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. When you do all this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us those thumbs up. They are really important. Check the notification box so you know when we're on the air, and whatever you do, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. What do we do here? We report the news, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. In short, we de-propagandize the mainstream media. We make commentary. That is not news. That is opinion. Both yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Eddie Jones is here with us. Anoy Guzman has joined us as well. Want to also thank, the others. Martha Brothers is here. Alicia Delosier has joined us. We are watching the world react to the Hamas-caused war in the Middle East. It has set Americans at each other's throats. At least so far, not as violently as in other parts of the country, other parts of the world. In Paris, for example, there are people that are traveling the neighborhoods of Paris and painting Stars of David on people's houses, swastikas on and near Jewish institutions in France. It is an affront. It is not only an affront, it is a callback to the 1930s, and that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. The idea that this world has people in it that would try to denigrate and or slaughter and or terrorize people for the simple reason of what church they go to is absolutely ridiculous. It's monstrous. It's evil. And it's time for the world, it's time for this entire human civilization to rise up and say enough. We have worked as much as we possibly could to try to quell the grievances of people around the world, especially where the Jews are involved. They refuse to take yes for an answer. In that particular case, it's time for a different answer. And that is what's happening now. And these same monsters are reacting to the fact that they are finally being called on their evil and indeed being held accountable for it. And are thus trying to spread their disgusting behavior in other ways, including this country. Fortunately, here in the United States, things are a little bit better from a law enforcement standpoint. A 21-year-old Cornell University student was arrested yesterday for posting threats online against Jewish students at the university. This according to the DOJ. Patrick Dye, a junior at Cornell University who was originally from Pittsford, New York, was arrested on a federal criminal complaint charging him with posting threats to kill or injure another using interstate communications. That goes with a 5-year prison sentence if convicted, a fine up to $250,000, and supervised release, not more than 3 years. He's expected to make his first appearance in federal court in Syracuse, New York today. The anti-Semitic messages posted on a fraternity and sorority forum alarmed students, prompting a response from police and New York Governor Kathy Hochul. The anonymous threats were the latest in a surge of anti-Semitic and Islamophobic incidents around the nation since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, October 7th. University officials and Hochul confirmed earlier yesterday that a person of interest was in custody. We remain shocked by and condemn these horrific anti-Semitic threats, and we believe that they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We know that our campus community will continue to support one another in the days ahead, said Joel Molina, Vice President for University Relations, in a statement yesterday. Cornell Police will maintain its heightened security presence on campus as the university continues to focus on supporting the needs of our students, faculty, and staff. That's not the only problem. Campuses across the U.S., anti-Israel protesters have organized massive demonstrations since the Hamas attack. The surge in incidents have been paired with anti-Semitic rhetoric and violence against Jews. Students feel unsafe. Incidents at UC Berkeley, at the University of at New York University, and so on, across the country. Absolutely ridiculous. It's something that has to be discussed here. What are they teaching at these so-called institutions of higher learning? Looks to me like they're being taught that they are actually going to institutes of higher fascism, higher bigotry, higher genocide. What is the academy doing? There is absolutely no excuse for any of it, especially when you consider the money being paid. This isn't an education. This is a terrorist farm. The horrible thing about all of this is that what if these people have their way? Who will they kill next? Who will the next group of people be? Where will the next genocide occur? It will all fold within. It is horrible. It has happened before. Russia, China, Cambodia. We've all seen this before. And instead of decrying the horror and talking about the tragedy, et cetera, you know what it's time to do? It's time to kick these people's butts right off this planet. Enough is enough. America's institutes of higher whatever it is need to all come together, sit around looking at each other with their sheepskins tied around their necks as if they're some sort of shield against accountability, and say the following: anyone who demonstrates for any group that is being held accountable for known terrorist activity will be dismissed from this campus forthwith. We will not, absolutely not, tolerate support for terrorists, and terrorism around the world. If that's what you want to do, you'll do it someplace else. Don't worry about going back to your dorm room. We'll pack it up for you and send it to wherever you want us to send it. If I had a child at Cornell and they had been seen on television carrying a Palestinian flag talking about the end of Israel and the genocide of the Jews, I don't know where he'd send his stuff. Sure as hell's not going to send it here. And I'm not kidding. I just draw the line at genocide. And other people need to do the same thing. These college kids who can't hear the word Trump on campus without falling into some sort of infantile position, sucking their thumbs on the ground, the prenatal position, crying for their mother, suddenly have absolutely no problem about standing up and advocating for Jews to be burned on sight, shot, what have you. They don't have any problem with that. So that's all baloney, isn't it? All that triggering thing and all these safe zones. Screw that. Those are all over with. You got a problem with it, go home. Go back to your little entitled enclave and try to figure out whether or not you can put a helmet on and get back out into life and actually start respecting your fellow man. Until you do that, you don't need to be at a university. You need to be living in your parents' basement. What am I getting wrong here? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. There are Jewish students across the country that are genuinely in fear of their lives. What am I getting wrong here? The people running these academic farces around the country need to be dismissed forthwith. Where are the trustees? What are they doing? Contemplating their navels, I guess. Wondering if the sherry is adequate for their buddies coming down from the university later this afternoon. I don't know what the hell they're thinking. But they have created this mess. Well, what about free speech rights? Well, free speech rights go right out the window when you're advocating for terrorism. Yeah, when you're advocating for terrorism, gosh, that's it. Well, Israel's guilty of terrorism. No, they're not. They're guilty of defending themselves. There were no terrorist activities in the Gaza Strip by the Israeli Defense Force before Hamas came out of the Gaza Strip and started slaughtering Jews. Crazily, you go into Israel, you start killing Jews, and the IDF will start slaughtering you. Isn't it the weirdest thing? It's that accountability thing. But I tell you what, this garbage here in America, we're not going to have it. We're simply not going to have it. Now, I don't know this kid from Cornell. I don't have any idea, but I read what he wrote. That's good enough for me. You want to be a terrorist? Go ahead. After you get out of jail in 5 years, get your ridiculous butt out to wherever they live. Go find ISIS. Go find what's left of Hamas. There won't be anything. You'll have to find whatever its successor is. Go out there and fight your fight. All you're going to be doing is waiting for the next Hellfire missile to land on your forehead. Because the world is done with this. And what about Iran? Well, Benjamin Netanyahu said it best. Iran is the world's first suicide country. The entire world needs to look at Iran with baleful eyes and say, stop, or we will pulverize you. And I guarantee you, if it's not for the Jews, what would Iran's next target be? I'll tell you. Right here. We can either roll through Iran like tissue paper right now, or we can roll through Iran as they toss what's left of their nuclear inventory right back at us. We can fight that war two ways. But this is what they want. They want war. They want to eradicate Israel. They want to kill all the Jews. They want to do it in any way they possibly can, and the world allows them to indulge Hezbollah, allows them to indulge Hamas, thinking that if they look the other way, what? Iran will probably save them to the last of the list of people to be eradicated because they just don't like them? No. Time's up. Time to confront Iran now, or time to confront Iran after it has nuclear weapons. You choose. Which do you think is the right course of action? We showed what we could do in Iraq. I don't think Iran is that strong. I think we have a golden opportunity to end this now. And I am waiting for someone to come up with the correct decision on that. Time to end it. Again, what am I getting wrong? 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. Go ahead. Talk me off the ledge. I'm willing to listen. 817-379-2172.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. So, So it looks like there is news. It comes to us courtesy of an update on my cell phone. And this comes from Channel 8 News, ABC News in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. After nearly 3 decades in the U.S. House of Representatives, Congresswoman Kay Granger has announced she will not seek re-election. She's 80 years old. She announced today that she was not going to run for the House in 2024. Granger has represented Texas's 12th congressional district in the U.S. since 1997. She currently serves as the first Republican female chair of the House Appropriations Committee. The 12th district covers a large portion of Fort Worth, western Tarrant County, and North Parker County. Before that, Granger was the first female mayor of Fort Worth and then became the Texas' first Republican U.S. Congresswoman. Serving my community has been the greatest honor. I've always fought to improve the lives of my constituents. I've been able to accomplish more in this life than I could have imagined. I owe it all to my incredible family, staff, friends, and supporters. Kay Granger is going to retire, will not run for her office in 2024. That's breaking news, just happened. We were discussing just moments ago about why it is that Christopher Wray went before the Senate yesterday and started talking about how, gosh, we really have a problem with the threat level in the United States based on the Israel-Hamas war. And that particular hearing was also decorated by Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. And there was a slight problem with the Secretary when it came to a certain senator who decided that he had had enough dealing with the smarmy assurances of a guy who doesn't know what he's doing.
This person works for the Department of Homeland Security. Have you fired her?
That was one of 4 answers.
Have you fired her?
One.
Have you fired her? Don't come to this hearing room when Israel has been invaded and Jewish students are barricaded in libraries in this country and cannot be escorted out because they are threatened for their lives. You have employees who are celebrating genocide, and you are saying it's despicable for me to ask the question? Has she been fired?
So that individual has been placed on administrative leave.
So she's not been fired, but she's still on your payroll as we sit here today.
That is not what I'm saying.
She's still on your payroll as we sit here today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Tom Hawley. Yeah, Tom Hawley is done with that guy. And I'm done with that guy. And all of us should be done with that guy. That's the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. How much Homeland Security do Jewish college students have right now? That's right. Not much. Then, of course, there's this. There are these learned people like Robert A. Pape, a professor of political science and director of the University of Chicago Project on Security and Threats. He's the author of several books on air power and terrorism, including, quote, Bombing to Win, Air Power and Coercion in the War. The views expressed in the commentary are his. This is in CNN's opinion page. Mr. Pape starts out with Israel's strategy for defeating Hamas, destroying its military and political capabilities to the point where the terror group can never again launch major attacks against Israeli civilians, is unlikely to work. Really? Yeah, it's unlikely to work. To defeat terrorism groups like Hamas, it's important to separate the terrorists from the local population from which they emerge. Otherwise, the current generation of terrorists can be killed only to be replaced by a new, larger generation of terrorists in the future. This is described by experts as counterinsurgency mathematics. Although the principle of separating the terror group from the broader population is simple, it is incredibly difficult to achieve in practice. As you can probably tell by my tone, I have certain, differences of opinion with Mr. Pape, many of which I will discuss in just a couple of moments as we continue this broadcast today. It is the Wells Report, telephone number 817-379-2172.
Nobody wants wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
This is the Wells Report. We bring you news, analysis, commentary, and debate. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. Looking forward to hearing from you. By all means, do so. You can also join us on the chat room. Eddie Jones, we got to be careful of erasing history, and it's in full motion. I may be partisan in that understanding, but it's a road we need to clarify. Yeah. So, Yvonne Field talking about Josh Hawley interacting with Mayorkas. I saw that encounter. Hawley nailed his adversary to the wall. Mayorkas effectively took the fifth throughout his responses. He has nothing else to say. He has nothing else to say. The guy is a bureaucratic joke. He has no business running the Department of Homeland Security. He has no business running the Department of Latrine Sanitation. The guy's a joke. He doesn't know what he's doing. All he is some guy that is very smoothly able to evade accountability, and that is what America's bureaucracy and bureaucratic class has developed. He's a perfect example of what happens when you let people essentially skate through government service without holding them accountable for anything. Okay. Robert Pape, the professor of political science and director of the University of Chicago Project on Security and Threats, author of several books that have nothing to do with the current Israeli-Hamas interactions, is now, of course, opining on what Israel should be doing and is not doing. Israel's strategy for defeating Hamas, this, by the way, is an op-ed piece. Israel's strategy for defeating Hamas, destroying its military political capabilities where the terror group can never again launch major attacks, is unlikely to work. Oh, really? Yeah. Indeed, what he says is Israel is likely producing more terrorists than it's killing. To defeat terror groups like Hamas, it's important to separate the terrorists from the local population from which they emerge. Otherwise, the current generation of terrorists can be killed only to be replaced by a new, larger generation of terrorists in the future. This is called by experts counterinsurgency mathematics. I wonder who these experts are. And I wonder which of these experts actually were successful in counterinsurgency in a practical, real-world venue. The principle of separating the terror group from the broader population is simple. It's incredibly difficult to achieve in practice. That's right, because people refuse to do it the right way. How do you separate a populace from a terror group amongst them? Well, you make it impossible for the populace to tolerate the terror group. How do you do that? You make their life incredibly uncomfortable. Here's what you do. You say, there will be no humanitarian aid being given to you in the Gaza Strip. However, we will guarantee your safety through the Rafah Gate into the Sinai Peninsula, where we have set up a very handy refugee camp that will be absolutely safe from Israeli airstrikes, even if Hamas leadership is in there. All you need to do is bring your clothes, your favorite underwear. We'll take care of everything else. One suitcase. And there is no humanitarian effort in the Gaza Strip. It's right outside the Rafah Gate. Egypt says, my goodness gracious, we're not going to allow you to do that. Here's $25 billion. Okay, you can move them in right here, right now. Thank you very much. You go in there and you do that. And every few days you drop leaflets from high-flying aircraft that say, tired of this yet? Fresh food and water waiting for you outside the Rafah Gate. Robert Pape says, my goodness gracious, you know what? If you do that, the Hamas guys will just go out there with them. Yeah, but they won't take any of their armaments with them, will they? They won't be able to move goods and services for terror and hatred and all that kind of stuff through the tunnels that don't exist under the Sinai Peninsula in the Sinai Desert. They only have one suitcase. You provide them with everything. Meanwhile, Israel goes through the Gaza Strip. Anybody left is a Hamas terrorist. Bye-bye now. See you later. Gone. No, that's just going to make more people into terrorists. Get to that in just a couple of minutes. And he says, this is the pattern that happens. Israel invaded southern Lebanon, 78,000 combat troops, 3,000 tanks and armored vehicles. And then what ended up happening was there were suicide attacks. They created Hezbollah. Right. Why? Because the Israelis were forced to withdraw. They shouldn't have withdrawn. Israel maintained a heavy military occupation of Gaza and the West Bank from the early 90s to 2005. The operation succeeded in killing terrorists from Hamas and other Palestinian groups, triggered vast local support for terrorist groups. Massive campaigns of suicide attacks against Israelis that stopped only when the heavy Israeli military forces left. Exactly. Again, Israeli forces were pressured to leave, and they did. Hamas won the 2006 Palestinian elections. That's right. And Hamas has been ruling the Gaza Strip ever since because Israel got out of their way and let them. Israel launched a ground offensive into Lebanon in July-August of 2006. The goal was to completely destroy Hezbollah leadership and fighters so that it could never again kidnap Israeli soldiers, launch missiles at Israeli cities. The offensive failed. Hezbollah is vastly stronger, mainly because nobody's holding Iran accountable. And once again, Israel left because of international pressure. The U.S. occupied Iraq in 2003 with 150,000 combat troops, crushed Saddam Hussein's army within 6 weeks. These heavy military operations led to the largest suicide terror campaign in modern times, a major civil war in Iraq, and ultimately the rise of ISIS. You know why? Because I was sitting here behind this microphone saying, you know what, the United States ought to declare Iraq an American territory. And we should have never left. None of these things, the major civil war, the rise of ISIS, would have happened had we stayed. But we left. Are you beginning to see the pattern yet? Pape hasn't seen it. Yeah, Professor Pape hasn't seen this yet. In Gaza, the tragic pattern is already happening right now. We're witnessing not the separation of Hamas and the local population, but the growing integration of the two. That's because they're always integrated. The Palestinians voted for Hamas to lead them. They're being held accountable for that decision. You want to separate Hamas and the population? Make it possible for the population to have a better life without Hamas than it does with Hamas. How do you do that? By bringing all of this wonderful humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip so that both Hamas and the populace are nourished? No. No, you don't. You start at the north of the Gaza Strip with this large military force. And you open the southern end of the Gaza Strip and say, there's a refugee camp that won't be bombed over here. Food, water, one suitcase. We're going to search it, by the way. And you can go live there. We got places for you to live. We got beds. We got food. We got water. We got everything. Oh, but the Hamas guys will just go. Right. Yeah, they will. And then what you do is you have Israel go through completely through the Gaza Strip. Anybody that's there is a Hamas terrorist. They either end up in an Israeli prison or they end up gone. It's their choice. Absolutely their choice. And then after Israel's done, United Nations peacekeepers come into the Gaza Strip and live there. Israel withdraws. And then the United Nations peacekeeping forces vet everybody who wants to go back to the Gaza Strip, all the while working very hard to replace the destroyed infrastructure and buildings and so on and so on. And by the way, while you're in the position of destroying these buildings and carting them away, instead of building other houses for weapons storage and more terrorists and so on and so forth, why don't you build some nice hotels? Why don't you start with the Gaza Strip Surfing Championship? Why don't you start living well while you're rebuilding this? I must point out that it's been about a generation since we fought the first Gulf War. It's been about 33 years. Generations are about 30 years. When we finished with the Second World War, the protagonists in that war, actually the antagonists in that war, Germany and Japan, had Allied forces living amongst them for 60 years. It takes 2 generations to be able to eradicate all this garbage. You have to deprogram the kids that are now adults, that are now terrorists. You have to deprogram those guys just by giving them a nice life, holding them accountable when they decide to be a terrorist again. Let them raise their kids as they see fit, but give them schools where they're not taught that Jews are about to shoot them in the back of the head. And then what you end up doing is you go from there to their children. And suddenly things begin to kind of unwind and diffuse. You make a big deal out of the fact that this is the first Palestinian kid to win the Palestinian Surfing Championship since they started 35 years ago. Fantastic. The Mediterranean coast is beautiful. Why won't the Palestinians do anything with that beautiful coast? Why don't they do something to help their people instead of helping their people die for their own particular political ideologies? Not the people's ideologies, apparently, because everybody keeps talking about these innocent Palestinians. They don't exist. They're adherents to a philosophy, not a country. And oh, by the way, let's stop asking Palestine if they want a country. You see, that's what happens here. This is where DuPape, or not DuPape, this is one Randy, my friend. Anyway, this is where this breaks down. Mr. Pape's opinion piece. What does work? It's crucial to engage in long campaigns of selective pressure over years, not simply a month or 2 or 3 of heavy ground operations, and to combine military operations with political situations or solutions from early on. Israel would have done that, except you guys kept telling them to get out and kept talking about how the Palestinians were occupied. Well, look at what happens when you stop occupying Palestinians. They start blowing people up, burning them, killing them, stabbing them, raping them, torturing them. If Palestinians don't want to be occupied, stop living in such a way that requires occupation and make it plain. The only way to create lasting damage to terrorists is to combine, typically in a long campaign of years, sustained selective attacks against identified terrorists with political operations that drive wedges between the terrorists and the local population. They've been doing that for 56 years. It's not working, Mr. Pape. You are advocating for an intellectually and reality bankrupt solution. Again. ISIS still exists. But it can't do anything. Mainly because not only did everybody that could do anything in ISIS get slaughtered by the United States and its allies. Not a lot of people want to join ISIS because they get slaughtered by the U.S. and their allies. Going forward, Israel needs a new strategic conception of defeating Hamas, the only viable way. And once again, there's an alternative. Start the political process toward a pathway to a Palestinian state. This is where your biggest flaw is, Mr. Pape. The Palestinians don't want a state. They want to eradicate Israel. They want a non-Jewish state filled with Palestinians so they can kill what's left of the Jewish population. That's not going to happen. The Jews paid for Israel with 6 million lives slaughtered by Nazis. They are not going to allow it to happen again with new Nazis trying to slaughter them now. No, they're going to kill them first. And you're going to get out of the way. And you're going to stop telling people that, hey, you know what? We got to give them a Palestinian state. By the way, I do agree with you at some level on that. But I'm not asking Palestinians again about whether they want a Palestinian state. Okay, here's your Palestinian state. It's the West Bank. What we're going to do is we are going to give you the West Bank, and we are going to give you a like amount of property to compensate you for the Gaza Strip. And we're going to redevelop the Gaza Strip into a nice place where we can have the Israeli surfing championship in a few years. Yeah, we're going to turn it into the new Dubai. And you can have the West Bank. And we're not going to ask you. We're going to tell you that that's now Palestine. Do with it as you choose. But if you follow the steps of Hamas in the West Bank, or excuse me, in the West Bank, as you did in Gaza, then we'll make sure that we visit you in the West Bank too. You will live in a civilized manner, or you will find someplace else to go. And since nobody in the world wants Palestinians living among them, it looks like they're kind of their Alamo, to put it in Texas terms. So make a life or make a mess. It's totally up to you. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. What is the United States doing with regards to Israel? Well, we're working our way through trying to get emergency aid legislation into the hands of the Israelis. Republican leaders released the text of their legislation, which includes $14 billion for Israel in its war against the terror group Hamas. The new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson from Louisiana, was speaking on Fox News and explained that he's hoping to get some Democrat help to get this bill passed in the House of Representatives.
Do you have any sense of the number of Democrats who you think might come?
I hope that it's most or all of them. I mean, there's a few people who have philosophical differences on that and will have their opposition to that. But look, this is a matter of good versus evil.
How's it going to be paid for?
We're going to be releasing that here shortly, but my intention and my desire in the first draft of this bill is to take some of the money that has been set aside for the building and bulking up the IRS right now. They have about $67 billion in that fund, and we'll try to take the 14.5 necessary for this immediate and urgent need. We'll deal with the rest of that issue later.
Do you think that will drive away some Democrats in the Senate even, or here in the House?
It may, but my intention is to call Leader Schumer over there and have a very direct and thoughtful conversation about this. I understand their priority is to bulk up the IRS, but I think if you put this to the American people and they weigh the two needs, I think they're going to say standing with Israel and protecting the innocent over there is in our national interest and is a more immediate need than IRS agents.
I like that guy. I think he's a good one. I thought as much before he was elected, and the more I hear him speak, the better I like what he says. He says it's in our national interest to support our great ally and friend Israel in their time of need. We also have to keep focus on our own financial stability. Those things must happen simultaneously. Yeah, you see, this is the first Speaker of the House that has actually started talking about the incredible debt we have here in the United States. I would refer Senator Schumer and anyone else who's a critic of this particular bailout bill or this supplemental aid package to Israel to talk to and read the Treasury report that came out this week that indicates we're going to have to borrow $1.6 trillion for the next 6 months to get the government in operation. $1.6 trillion. We have a $33 trillion national debt. To suggest that it's a poison pill, by the way, Senator Schumer then immediately said this. He criticized the bill. Schumer said the package is woefully inadequate, denounced its offset provisions as poison pills that increase the deficit and keep wealthy tax cheats from paying their fair share of taxes. Yeah, we keep coming back to this ridiculous tax situation again, where the IRS tax code is essentially a tool for politicians to play class warfare and once again divide the American people. It's absolutely ridiculous. In a country like the United States, we don't have a flat tax system that can't be manipulated. Of course, that's the problem. It can't be manipulated. And a limit to what individuals can pay per individual to the American Treasury. In absence of those laws that I've been calling for years, we have this mess. Well, wealthy tax cheats are avoiding paying their fair share. They pay the most taxes. The top 1% pay 50% of the taxes in the United States. How much more fair does that share need to be, Chuck Schumer? That guy infuriates me. It's not because he's a Democrat. It's because he's a flim-flam man. That's all he is. So Johnson said this. I refer Senator Schumer to the Treasury report, and then said this, to suggest that it's a poison pill to have to pay for $14.3 billion in overseas investment is, I'm sorry, I just think that's something that doesn't line up with reality. And he's correct. Johnson is correct. And I think the American people largely agree with us, so I'm ready to have that debate. By the way, the House is going to vote on the Israeli aid bill today, maybe tomorrow. If it's not immediately clear if it will get past the Senate and the White House, Secretary of State Antony Blinken paid Johnson a visit after defending President Biden's supplemental request in a meeting earlier in the day. Welcome to the Wells Report. Hi, who's this?
I think it's J.D. Wells, but I can't see it. But this is Gary.
No. You're Gary. I'm John David Wells.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the difference there. Gary, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to have another lead in.
No, I just said welcome to the broadcast. What's up?
Yeah, I'm used to you. Yeah, this whole thing, I'm glad you brought up the whole, flat tax. I don't see, I'm not a proponent of any more government control, et cetera, or putting limitations on people, but I don't see how, like a flat tax across the board, regardless of income, and of course it would have to be toward the lower end of the spectrum. I'm just throwing this out. 8%, 10%, and that's it.
Well,
Nothing
what you
else.
do, it's a regressive. There are three different tax brackets, the way I see it. You know, it's 12, 10, and 8. If you make less than $250,000 a year, you pay 12. If you make less than $500,000 but $250,000 and $1, you pay 10%. And if you make more than $500,000 a year, you pay 8%. And there's a limit. There's an upper limit to how much money any individual can pay.
Yeah, I understand all that. And my thing is, if there was just a flat tax with all these hidden things, and just remove sans business expenses. If you're a construction person, you buy 2x4s, that comes off your income.
Yeah. Now, by the way, this is the Wells Report. That's the end of the broadcast. But we're going into overtime because Gary wants to talk.
Oh, okay. And I'm just thank you. And I'm just saying if we did away with all of these loopholes and deductions, and just a flat tax,
right?
And if that flat tax cannot be raised, I don't see how somebody can't get down with a pencil and paper and figure this out, what rate will be good, and would just stabilize all this stuff.
Well, it absolutely would. And the thing about it is this. There's no reason why Americans shouldn't be able to sit down at the kitchen table and do their income taxes every year in 20 minutes.
Yes.
That's all it takes. That's all you got to take. That's all you got to take. Okay. And as far as the rest of it goes, one of the reasons why we pay so much money for our houses is because it is a poor man's tax hedge. If you get rid of it, then housing prices actually begin to drop. There are a lot of different dynamics that would change the society in the United States if we would just stop playing games with our tax code. But
I think you hit it right on the head, as you mentioned several times, just about every broadcast, that this government doesn't want to solve problems, because that solves problems. Let's just keep rolling and exacerbating all the other ones.
Yes,
and they keep getting reelected, and these creep career politicians. And
Chuck Schumer.
Chuck Schumer, Lindsey Graham, Whistler's mother there, McConnell. I have no use for any of them like that. You're just a bum if you're living off the government like that.
They've made themselves antiquated expenses as opposed to public servants, and they need to stop. Listen, man, I got to go, but I just wanted to thank you very much for your telephone call and extending the Wells Report for a little bit while we talk some of the things that actually create solutions to problems instead of perpetuating them for public service. For political purposes. And he hushed. Okay. Gary, thanks very much for joining us. And thank you for joining us as well here on the Wells Report. God bless you and your endeavors. And we'll see you again tomorrow right here, wherever it is, wherever here is, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon. Doesn't make any difference. Thanks for being a part of our broadcast. Stick around. We've got the Substack column coming up in just a couple of minutes based on today's news. And we'll also, by the way, I got to say this on a programming note. We will not be on the air tomorrow. We're not going to be on the air tomorrow. I got some doctor's things I got to do. It's one of those things. I'll be back on Friday. Cross your fingers. I'll be back on Friday, and thanks very much for paying attention to this edition of the Wells Report. We'll have more information for you coming up on the various platforms. And until, I guess it's going to be Friday, God bless you and yours, and I'll see you then.